give me a second. Hello. Just give me a second for us to go live onto Facebook in our group. I hope that you're having an amazing Saturday. And you took a lot of time for self-care, but that you also did your homework. So give me just a few minutes. We'll be right together. Such good stuff, guys. Such good stuff. I had no idea it would be this amazing. Okay, here we go, guys. Just want to make sure we're recording. All right, perfect. So I just want to welcome you back. For those of you who have either watched last night, the replay, or you were on last night's call, I have to say, like, I left that call and I was saying to my husband, I was like, oh my God, you have no idea what that was like. That was as if I was face to face with somebody or working one-on-one, because that is what a breakthrough looks like. So if you've ever sat there and wondered, you know, what happens or what are the steps that a coach who is successful, like what does it look like? That's actually what it looks like. When I had Rachel's Wellness, my clients, we did the same thing. We would do EFT tapping, I would do breathing, we would do shamanic stuff. And by no means am I a shaman, but I always say, you know, we are an example of the people that have influenced our life. And I searched, I always say I wasn't lucky, because you're not lucky. I keep saying this 10%. Not lucky when you find these people. You're a leader. Hold on, let me just make sure that you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Just tell me that you can hear me. Just want to make sure. Yes? Okay, just checking. And if you can't hear me for any reason, just go to your own settings and make sure, you know, that there's a good connection. But I just want to remind you guys, because this is something we often forget. So I'm going to bring you close for this one, is we often think we get lucky that people have come into our life. That is not true. We manifest those people. We search out those people. The 10 people, the 5 people that are in like your realm are the people that are going to contribute to how you act on a daily basis or who you are. And so if we're fortunate if we have 1 or 2 people in our life that believe in us, or that see us, or don't judge us, or that we don't feel judged by. And so what I hope that you got from last night, because I woke up this morning and was completely clear about a few things in my life. And that is what coaching does. And that's not just when we coach people. That's when we show up. That's when we share from a place. And most often it's not just the win, right? It's the times that we feel the struggle, because it's the struggle and this perseverance that requires what I was just having a long talk last week with my son Max about. That's when it's who you are. That's who you are as a person. And so when we don't have that, when we don't show up and share the good and the bad and the ugly, it's really hard then to show up at all, because we hone in and we believe that people only want to see a perfect us. And I call that the puppet master syndrome. How many of you say puppet master in the comments, wherever you're hearing that, if you are like, had that syndrome, which is really a disease. It's a disease of mind and body and soul. You're like, oh, well, And again, this is what we were talked about last night. And this is part of your story. This is part of why most of us became coaches. It's no shame or blame. It's life. We are, and this is the post that I talked about today. We are our story. It's how many of you have seen What the Bleep? It's cellular memory, and that we inherit from our mom and dad, the jing from each organ. We inherit, and we also go through life, and our cells just pick up at every moment. So our job is to reset ourselves. But so much of us have to do that daily work on set boundaries, say no when I want to say yes. That was a big one for me. Learn that I don't have to be perfect, and I don't have to, share perfectly. And that was my biggest syndrome. So when I want you to think of last night, which was, video 2 of day 2, and that was you witnessing what it looks like to share, to show up vulnerable, and to show up with a story, and not this like perfect. Well, I help people who are struggling with blood sugar issues, have diabetes, and you heard of what? You heard a story. How many of you cried last night? Because I had to hold back every tear while I was working, with our amazing, coach last night. I had to hold back everything. And I, went in the bathroom at night, and I was like, please, to my angels, my higher ups, whatever you want to call it, Allah, God, whatever, whoever you feel is your higher and that looks over. I just said, release this. Let me release this happiness for this person, but also release this, and pay this forward to those of us who still hold on to thinking, myself included. That is my daily reprieve. My daily reprieve. So as we go into today, and as you saw, day 1, we talked about a funnel and what was missing. And as you see it on day 2, we really started to uncover, are you really speaking to your niche? Because you had to look at your business in full transparency to see what's really missing. Would I really hire myself? Those are actually the deeper questions. It's not, have I hacked a perfect health coach funnel? It's, am I really speaking to my soul? And my soul meaning my avatar, or the buyer personality of my avatar, which we talked about, the one-on-oneers, the groupies, the do-it-yourselfers. But again, they intermingle, because the do-it-yourselfer might be like, wow, this person really took care of me. I am definitely going to be a lifer. That's what we call raving fans. It's like a weird word, but it's the theory that you could have 150 people only on your list, but if you've always treated them like they were a VIP client. That's why I always say to my clients, it doesn't matter if you have a single session with me, a VIP month, or you get like the mini hustle. I treat you the same. I will stalk you. I will text you. I will ask you if you're okay, because you're a person to me. If you always operate your business like that, you will be successful. So as we did last night, I want you to take a deep breath. What we're going to do tonight is something that is just a really great energy kind of soul alignment. And that's what we're all about these days, because when we are soul aligned, we create amazing businesses. So go like this. And for those of you who are doing this after, you're going to do this when you watch a replay, and you're going to do this at any time that you don't feel in alignment. You're going to rub your hands together, getting all that chi going. You're going to take a deep breath in, and a deep breath out, and you're going to take deep breath in. And then when we go, the liver, like a snake who wants to just go through and make everything its own. Your liver wants to be the general in control of everything, the 500 metabolic processes. And then you're going to clap. Take it in. Put it. Heart. And now we're ready. So I want you, and trust me, we are going to tonight, like, go through hot seats, questions, everything, because this is your time. I can sit here and talk and talk and talk, but it's much easier if you, bear with me just as I put on my glasses. So funny that I have to say this. Slideshow. Okay. So, oh my God, we're on niche day 3. Hold on. So let me just stop for a second as I just edit this. That's what happens, guys, and this is what I mean about perfection. That's what happens when you're doing too many things at once, like taking care of your children and doing all these different things. So, okay, here we are. Just want to make sure that we have a shared screen. And now we're going to go here, and then I'm going to actually start this again. Okay, perfect. Here we are on day 3, and I apologize, like I said. Sometimes, how many of you know what it's like to run a business when you have kids and you're dropping off and you're doing activities? So, welcome to my life. And I'm sure it's like yours too. So here it is. Step 1. What is your story? The biggest thing I want you to think about is this doesn't have to be like perfect. We hold on to this perfection. I want you to just start saying hashtag screw perfection. Your story is, it's like, what happened? What was life like? What did you learn? How can you help somebody? In that down moment, what did you wish would have been there? So as you're thinking about these questions, you know, it's not just going right into who do you want to work with niche. It's, why do you actually want to do this? Story development on the most basic level is about really getting into your soul. How far back, and this is what I talked about in your timeline. So if you need to see a visual, you could do this on a whiteboard, or you could do this just on a board like this, just on a notebook, a journal. My health issues were at birth. My health issues went far back as constipation. So remember, symptoms of the root cause. Always symptoms of the root cause. We don't get diabetes. Some of us, maybe are born with genetic factors, but what then spills over the trash can? Again, genes load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. So what happened to make that little child or that 14-year-old boy get diabetes? Something happened in his or her body. So what happened at birth? For some of you, birth wasn't an issue. For some of you, you didn't get maybe until like me at 14, an ulcer. Then I was 18 and I got asthma. Now, we can say that was gut dysbiosis. We could say it was that heavy metals. We can say the parasites, the constipation, and the parasites from 6 to 8, which were pinworms, not to have too much TMI, but I want you to see how there's always a progression. So when people say, all of a sudden, I got lung cancer, it's like, what happened before this? Where were you living? What was going on? It's the same thing for us. Your About Me page, your social media posts, your workshops tell a story. It's not just the Sugar Blues workshop. The coaches who stand out are telling a story that identifies with them. Drop a 1 if you agree in the chat box or on Facebook. They're telling a story that makes sense. So if I say, I'm doing a sugar workshop, it's because in the height of my autoimmune breakdown, when all the systems were breaking down, I had a not higher A1C. It wasn't very high, but it just shocked me. And because of that, I became obsessed after being in the quick med every month with angioedema, which is when you wake up and you have a massive inflammation of usually the eyelids, or could be closed, the mouth, cheeks, anything, typically the face. And that was since the first birth of my child. Finally, a doctor and I swear this person, because I've never seen her since, said, when I was in med school and in the ER, people with angioedema would come in and there are like 12 reasons, hypothetical, but we never really knew what it was. Have you ever checked your sugars? I started checking them compulsively. Like every hour, every 2, because I also wanted to know how my body, my adrenals, how stress, how food, how I was metabolizing. And then as I spoke to my amazing nurse practitioner, who is, again, an amazing force in my life, who I've seeked out, who works in collaboration with me. She's not like, oh, we should do this. We're like, what should we be doing? I said, I think we need to test this. What could be the issue? She said, let's test this, which was my A1C. I would do a workshop on that. I wouldn't do one just on sugar blues. I don't think I convert people. Do we agree? Raise your hand. I wouldn't be like, oh, here's sugar blues. Come to a detox. But if I talked about that and being scared when I was pregnant with Sammy that my sugars were high, which they never were, I was hypoglycemic. But after years of the pancreas going back and forth, all of a sudden you'll start to see really high sugar spikes. And so I learned that is the part that we educate. We're not here to say, don't eat this. We're here to say, this is what I did. That's also how you stay safe in your business, without saying you need to go down to 25 net grams, net carbs, which is keto, 20 to 25. We don't have to necessarily always go there. It's about sharing, and it's about our story. So 18, asthma. By 20, I was in and out of the hospital every month and on life support 3 times. And at 21, they told my parents, it's time to say goodbye. She's been on life support for a week and she doesn't seem like she's coming out. Miraculously, I came out. Had a will, and I guess I had a mission to share on another level. So then I write 21. And then I go a little farther to what was the next stop. So this is what I want you to think. What were each of these times? It doesn't have to be every time. But for me, it was 21. Then it was 25. I started breaking teeth. I don't know if it was the tongue ring that I had, but I also started cracking teeth and started noticing gum receding. Also gut issues, also assimilation issues. And by the time I was 30 and 29 and decided to get off, birth control, because I knew I was wanting to have babies, I then didn't get a period for a year, and they thought that I had a pituitary tumor. And they told me I wasn't going to get pregnant. So there were each pivotal steps, 25 being the mercury poisoning, all that different stuff that I talked about. And again, see, even as I was going through this, forgot those things, which is why do this tonight. Do a timeline in addition to the homework on the replay page. Once you do a timeline, you're going to start to remember these things. Your About Me page, especially for those of you who are trying to figure out what do I even put on that, it is about your clients, but it also is about telling a story. You don't have to say everything, but you do need to say enough that somebody says, wow, and this is what I heard all the time. I never heard a story like you. I never heard somebody tell my story. That's the biggest thing you want. So I want you to write your timeline. You may even have to sit down and, like I said, think about it. Because even as I was like, oh, wait, what happened at 25? It was the heavy metal. It was the liver toxicity. It was the breakdown, the over-alkalinity. It was so many things. So we're going to get to that, Amanda, and I'm actually going to write you down because you're going to be on a hot seat. The other flip side, guys, and I say this a lot, you don't need to have a physical issue story like me. Remember, some of us are not physically affected by our issues. Some of us were emotionally affected. Some of us, it was trauma. Some of us, it was stress eating. Stress eating is a huge thing. I was a stress eater because I was trying to shove down all these emotions of post-traumatic stress. We all handle things in different ways. The key with your story is that there is a person and many people who will identify when you begin to speak. And sometimes we don't even know what those words are supposed to be. But the moment you hesitate and you pull back and you try to be so perfect, and this is why I always say, like, screw the funnel, even though I talk about it all the time, because that is your first date, second date, third, fourth marriage in your business. But stop thinking about all these other things that complicate the core fundamental brick and mortar, the building blocks of your business. Online or offline, doesn't matter, is really you. And if you don't think you're enough, say goodbye to a business and say goodbye to helping people. But we're going to overcome that. So I want you to do the timeline. I want you also to realize, again, it doesn't need to be a physical story. I have a lot of coaches in my membership who say, well, my story's not enough. I mean, I gained weight and, you know, I lost it. And I said, but how did you feel? How did you feel about it? And the person says, and I didn't like myself and I didn't want to be touched by my significant other. And I'm like, well, that's pretty profound. I worked with tons of teenagers, tons of women with eating issues. They didn't want to go out. They didn't go out. I helped them to lose 15 pounds to finally be able, and their goal wasn't to lose weight. It was to be able to go out with their friends again. We are not always driven just by a body image or just by the things that we talk about. Like they want great hair and they want great, skin. We are often driven internally by our heart, which is why we attach when somebody shares their story. And the story doesn't always have to be like, well, this is what I did. But you have to share it because there is somebody who will identify. So I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Why do you want to be a coach? Why do you want to do? Why do you want to do this? So many people say, well, and we have a myriad of 80,000 reasons. But what does your heart say? Not the right brain. So I want you to write that down. How do your values align with the work that you do? Because this is also part of your niche. Remember, I talked about Katrina. And Katrina was like, I only want to work with people who are faith-based, my faith. And I said, okay, so you're really clear. Because you're really clear, you're going to attract that person. What is the biggest issue? And she was like, well, everyone said to go for weight loss because that was the quote unquote easy marketable. I said, well, you did that launch. It didn't work. And you did it perfectly. You paid for Facebook ads to tons of people, but you didn't convert because it didn't resonate with you. What resonated? I was addicted to sugar. Some people might say in the world of marketing, Again, well, sugar is not really a niche. But what she did was she thought about the problem first. She thought about the problem and she thought about her niche of faith-based. And in faith-based, she believes that we can overcome anything. Marriage issues, problems at work, you know, and that became her main niche. And the problem was so many people are struggling with sugar issues because life is demanding. So what are your values? What are the core 4 principles that you stand on in your business? Is it family? Is it environmentally clean products? Is it cleansing? Is it gut health? Is it mindset? Is it mindset, weight loss, clean eating, and faith? Is it family health, prevention? You know, so you want to actually think about, like, from your story. For mine, it was always empowerment, education. It wasn't even like detox cleanse. It was like education, because I wish I would have had that. Empowerment, because I felt so disempowered when somebody said, here, this is the one protocol you can take, and that's the only thing that will work for you. And the moment that I said, can I get that cheaper somewhere else because I just paid $9,962 for testing? No, you can't. So when you think about your story and your brand is not just a logo. It's far from a logo. It's far from just a branding color sheet. I mean, does consistency of brand and color, and I mean color and text and the font, yes, that's important so that people recognize it. But the most important thing of a brand is what you're saying. It is your story wrapped up in, these are my values. This is what I stand on. Because as you re-niche, and you will, because you will change, you will get older. I'm helping my client to do that right now. She's not in her 40s anymore. She's in her 50s. So we're rebranding her message. And also, I don't think it worked for her in the beginning anyway. So that will happen because you're niching to your life. As I said earlier in that first, I worked with a lot of families who had kids who they were doing early intervention, because that's something we did. That was hitting home on a daily basis. What is hitting home now? That's what I want you to write down. Or what was hitting home in the last 5 years that brought you to this point right now? What were the feelings you had? Because I guarantee you your niche feels that too. Or the group that is experiencing this, or the person feels that too. How does your life impact also your vision for your business? So when you think about your story, this is 101 story, whether you work with a copywriter, whether we're talking about this today, what happened? What was life like? What did you learn? How did you feel? Or the many feelings. I was angry, I was sad, I was this. And again, going back to your timeline, this doesn't just encompass yours. This is, I know my mom felt this. I know my husband was, my soon-to-be husband was scared when we were told this. Your story helps to explain why you take certain steps. I went to 4 detox schools because I couldn't believe that I birthed children with such high heavy metals after doing so much detoxification and cleansing. I couldn't get it. I couldn't wrap my head around what was breaking down in this world. It wasn't just gut. It wasn't just the microbiome. It wasn't just serotonin and dopamine. There was so much more. And I knew our genetics and with nutrigenomics. So that's what inspired me. That's part of my story. Keep in mind, your story, not everything's on your About Me page. Your story is so that you get comfortable speaking to people and standing on the ground that you stand so you can have a business. So that you also don't feel like a imposter, that you don't feel like you're not enough. Along the way in that story, who were the people that helped to shape you? Or what was, I went to this school and I had this moment, or a year before I attended this school, or a year before I decided I would go to this school, this happened. I made a declaration. I made a decision. What did you learn? And write down the 5 pain points that for somebody who's going through your story. And remember, of course, there's all these different points. Could be like, I grew up with digestive issues from birth. I had fun things like pinworms and gut issues and ulcers and food allergies and hives and rashes that eventually led to a myriad of other fun, irritating health issues in and out of hospitals and on life support. Asthma, sugar issues, hormonal issues, thinking that and being told I would never get pregnant, all that fun stuff, which eventually led to ulcerative colitis and a host of heavy metals that burdened my body without even knowing, and I birthed 2 babies who had to lead that path. This is why today I help people who have autoimmune and mystery illnesses or just don't know where to turn, and I help you put the pieces together or put the team together so you can get well. Sometimes it takes a village. Putting your story together. Do you see how I took everything from here in a timeline and shortened it? So for those who are saying, I have these long, expansive stories, of course you do. Those are great for when you're one-on-one, you're doing discovery or strategy sessions. Or you're needing to identify and you just get this feeling, as I often do, and I'll say, I don't know why I'm about to say this, but I'm about to say this. And I say it to a client, or even if I'm teaching, most often face-to-face or in a very closed private forum, and I'll say, this is what once happened to me. And the woman will say, that happened to me too. Our stories are so we not only change, as I said in the beginning of this, but so that we help somebody to go to that next place too. Are you your niche? As I said, homework last night was to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I my avatar? Am I also different levels of my avatar? Maybe did I mirror 3 different buyer archetypes, 3 different buyer personalities? Where am I now? Or is my avatar where I was 10 years ago? So many coaches, I believe in what I see is that we're having issues going backwards. We remember our stuff, but we're like, I finally have come to this place. That's what I want to teach. But we forget what? The other 90%. We forget that maybe we weren't the 90, but we were like the top 30 because we didn't know where to turn. We felt confused. And we didn't figure out our step-by-step solution yet. And so we're trying to coach people there. And what I always say when someone is, contacts me for a strategy session to buy a done-for-you program, they're like, can I just talk this out? I'm looking at all the programs. I don't want to buy. I'm like, okay, let's just talk this out. And they're like, well, I have, sugar issues. I have this, I have that, but I really think ketogenic's great. And I think gut is great. And I say, are your clients struggling with just the sad American diet? Are they eating gluten, dairy, sugar, tons of cheese, processed foods? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so let's just start them out with like revitalized, clean eating, some basics are like the new reboot we're going to come out with, like the basics. Get people understanding the dirty dozen, like get people understanding the basics, because I think that we're trying to take people from like 0 to 100 because we want people to feel better, and I totally get it. But you have to go back in your story to also understand how to coach and think about each time you were fearful, each time that you were hesitant. I remember working with a coach. He was in England, and I paid a lot of money to work with him, and he was supposed to be like the best for autoimmune. And he told me I couldn't eat every food that I was eating. He told me that I couldn't juice, couldn't do anything, couldn't do all the things. And I went on a binge for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And I actually told him after working with him for a month that I just didn't think it was going to be a good fit based on my personality and based on that I needed to go slower with a person. So often we need to just think about also humans and how we operate. Drop a 2 if that makes sense. So your story is to also help you pick out your opt-in freebies. It's to help you pick out your workshops. It's to help you also bring that brand and that message into your social media posts. It's very different if I have a social media post that says, download, this guide on how to go fully raw, because when I went fully raw, all my health issues disappeared. To download this guide or download this free gift that I created that has foods that are cooked, recipes that are 10 recipes that are cooked, 10 recipes that are raw. It's great for a family, and it's great for many of you who are struggling with issues like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the exact issues I struggled with. But at that time, many years ago, I wasn't just ready to jump in, and nor are many of my clients. So I help them transition or find the perfect balance. Why don't you experiment and see what works for you? And I'm going to follow up with you in 7 days. Like, make it so it just feels not so like, like, download this. I think that we in marketing these days have just gone into that, like, do this, sign up, instead of having a conversation. So remember, your story is a conversation. Your funnel is a conversation. Hey, I had this problem. That's the opt-in. The thank you email is, I really wish this would have been told to me. My mom experienced this. She had, let's just take the example last night. She had diabetes. She had this issue, but I could take my mom. She had thyroid issues. She was put on thyroid medication, 8 months after she birthed me. I wish I would have known how to support my thyroid as a child, because it would have stopped me from having so many hormonal issues at 11 and 12, which is why they put me on birth control. You want it to make sense of why you do something. Otherwise, it's just like, oh my God, David Wolf says this. And, and again, I love David Wolf, met him, he's a great guy. But then it's just kind of like, Mark Hyman says this. It's like, you're like, no, I'm speaking from the people who have taught me, have influenced me, but I'm infusing my personal story, which is why you're hiring me. Drop a 3 if that makes sense. So we're going to talk about an event or situation. Think about it, that turned your life. This is the big one on your About Me page. Whenever I see people like, well, I attended this school, this school, this school, I'm like, that's great. But why do I need to hire you? What is going to make me? So think about, like, what was that turning point? What is that principle you believe that's fundamental to who you are? For me, it's no child, no person, no coach, no one gets left behind. You are given the facts and the truth. Truth is a huge thing for me. My father instilled that in me. I instilled that in my children, everyone probably I meet. And it's why I'm such a ranter. Talk about the time when a mentor, a teacher influenced you and got you to where. That's why I talk about Cora Poage and Nisha Moodley all the time, because they were a game changer. Ann Samloff, my launch coach, taught me that it's okay to beta test. And she also helped me to realize when I say, Ann, is this okay? And she would say, you know, Rachel, the funny thing about you is you always have the plan and the idea. You just need someone to tell you it's okay. So remember that I'm being your Ann. You know what to do. You just doubt it. Talk about an experience that helped to define the reason that you started what you do. Why was it? What made you? Because when we say, hi, my name is Rachel Feldman, I'm a health coach and I help people, it's like, look, I'm a health coach because I really got sick of watching TV commercials on medications with all these like problems. It's a really different answer than, I went to a school, I studied 100 different dietary theories. And I used to say that. When you were just really like, well, I became a coach because I have amazing kids and I really got frustrated with the school system and how the government runs food. Does that make sense? Everyone drop a 4 if that makes sense. Because I'd be like, that's when I get people to say, what do you do? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Not anymore. I know. I love Stephanie Zimmerman. She's like, more. I mean, how many of you guys, like, I love this. Raise your hand if you've told people you're a health coach and literally the eyes are like this. Like, you're just like, they look so out. You're like, no, I'm not an alien. Or you just feel like you're discredited. You're like, no, I teach people how to actually learn how to eat instead of needing to, no offense, Dr. Oz, listening to like the latest fad by Dr. Oz. That's what I do. Start to just like say what you want to do. Yeah, I help people because I was so sick of being told that I was never going to get pregnant at one time and then literally got pregnant the second day of my honeymoon. See from your story. Okay, is this now, please, can we say aha moment? From your story becomes your message. From your story becomes what you're about. From your story becomes the greatest pitch. Hey, yeah. Of course I'm coming to you at this yoga place, even though I never do yoga. But I had adrenal issues, and I can guarantee anyone coming to one of your yin yoga classes has adrenal issues because they're stressed. Would you love if I did a workshop here for free? How many of you could imagine just walking in and saying that to somebody instead of like, I'm a coach and these are the things and I could do that. It's like, just let it out. Be comfortable. Be confident. That is what this business is about. Business is not just, like I said, perfect, as you can see, all my whiteboards over there, although they're helpful. But most importantly, in the beginning, it's the fundamental, I accept myself and I know that I can really help people. Talk about the moment in your career and daily life which reinforces, boom, my children were born. I had to be an advocate for them in that birthing room. I remember being in the hospital and needing to do that. Like, any time that you felt that you needed to advocate for yourself, there, you just, that is your answer to everything. So write down your story. Who do you want to work with? Is it you? Is it somebody that you know? Pick out 10 different archetypes, even 3. I guarantee you, raise your hand if you know 10 different people who are literally within your niche. And they have all totally different personalities. Great. Take all of them. Write their names down on each page. Each page. Rip the page off like that. Just say, I'll write down Mimi's name for the purpose of today. This Mimi is here. Write this. Pin that up and write down. And this is going to be an ongoing flowing, but this is your market research. Ryan Dice would be like, way to go. This is the best market research. This is like your Instagram, social media, Pinterest, Bible. This is like something you pay, no joke, marketing companies to do $3,000, a proposal like this. You're going to write down every day. Pain points. Hashtags for Mimi. What is Mimi looking for? Mimi's looking for, hormonal health. Mimi's looking for family health. Mimi's looking for, healthy living. Does Mimi like magazines like Vogue? What does she like? So you're going to get to know Mimi. Does she work 9 to 5? Does she have kids? What's important to Mimi? What are Mimi's values? Everyone, now it's making sense, because all those different people, those are the people that are going to hire you. When you message to people, pictures are everything. Please do not. I'm 43. Maybe when you're watching this again, I'll be 45. But if I'm messaging and I want a woman who is in their 40s or late 30s to buy a program from me, am I going to put like a girl jumping up and being like this and she's like 20? No. I'm going to put a woman my age and I am going to speak to that woman. I probably wouldn't even, although I know some women who have, children at my age, but I wouldn't say that's of the norm. So I wouldn't put a woman holding her child up, because my children are 10 and 12. Would I even put her up? I mean, she's probably her late 30s, so I would say, yeah, she's kind of like a happy woman. But I would think about the things that a 40-year-old woman is thinking about. And I would pick out pictures that show other 40-year-old women hanging out with 40-year-old women. Of course, also, if your ethnicity plays into a factor, go onto Unsplash or Pixabay and find great pictures, or go onto Big Stock, or, whatever you feel, get great picture deals. But remember, people see images first. Next time, and people always say to me, where did you go to school for marketing? Because I didn't go to B school until I was 7 years into business. It always loved Marie Forleo. I was like, let me see what this lady's all about. I have followed her forever. But I've always watched my own behaviors. So my biggest suggestion for you when you're thinking about, what works and what doesn't work, is to think about your own behaviors. You really are your niche. We try to overcomplicate this and think, well, I've even had clients who've given me, no joke, 25-page documents broken down on their niche and their avatar. And the funny thing is, some of them never ended up even making money. But the ones who just feel it more, like really feel it and really know what they need to do, are actually the ones that peak it. So think about the story that you're telling with images. Your images tell a lot. And so you want them to either be images of yourself, and in these days, guys, I mean, if you don't have the money, go to, Mac Makeup Store or Bloomingdale's or somewhere and get your makeup done, and hire a photographer from a local college. And even some, photographers are very low cost, but it's worth getting a great few photos of yourself. Or use an iPhone or an Android. The level of picture quality these days is unbelievable. Get some shots of yourself so it's really showing you in a lifestyle way. Ask a friend or a loved one, you know, or just do your own makeup that day, or Ulta, something, and come home and put on 5 different outfits. And just take some pictures of you picking out food in the market, of you enjoying life, of you jumping around, of you in your office. And then also, like I said, start to make a Dropbox of, and organize it. Pictures of food, pictures of women in their 40s, pictures of women in their 30s, 20s, couples, so that you are organized. The name of this game, when you're not doing this 9 to 5, but even when you are doing this 9 to 5, and as an entrepreneur, which really is not 9 to 5, you want to be super organized, so you really are, even though I believe all good things come to those who hustle, there's a way to work smarter and not harder. And that is the goal, so that you really strategically think about everything that you're doing. Because what I see a lot of coaches doing is they just buy programs and they're like FOMO, fear of missing out. Instead of just really thinking about how are they going to use this? Are they better as an offline coach, online coach? What's really going to serve them? What is first, date, second, third, fourth? What is the overall plan that they want to have? And where do they really see themselves as a vision in their business? So when you are telling a story, you're selling. And that's why I call it soul selling, soul marketing, soul niche. Because when you really speak from that place, there's not a marketing part of it. You're just selling. Always think about what your clients are struggling with. This was one, I think this was actually one of the done for you freebie opt-ins. I just had made a cover myself on my ebook maker. So yeah, I did things on myself, and I still do. But I found a great picture of somebody who looked like she was close to my age-ish in a market, and get fueled by simple, healthy steps for the really busy person. This was all about adrenal fatigue. You can even see I was like, let me show you guys like something I did. See, I don't think I'm faking the fake. And this was like such a hit because I talked about adrenal issues, and I talked about the fact that I was really in the midst of them and working through them as a busy mom and a mom that had babies and a woman building a business. So we don't often have to be fixed. And I think that's often why coaches feel imposter stuff. I let go of that. So you can either let go tonight, or you can stay stuck holding on to that and letting that story run the show. So social media, live events, workshops, freebies, video series, giveaways, podcasts these days, meaning like reach out to podcasters, summits, I mean, anything like that. Expos, offline stuff. There's so many opportunities. So just remember, people know me always for talking about my children, talking about my family. It's not always the niche. It is your message. It's the core message of your brand. Like, what comes first for you? What is important? And for me, it was providing like the healthiest solution for my kids, because I grew up, even though I was, a competitive swimmer and I was a gym rat and all that, I grew up with a lot of health issues, and it just killed me, the thought that my kids would be on like these medications at such a young age and go through some of the stuff that I went through, let alone like even myself dying like my grandmoms did, both at 60 of cancer. And I was like, no, as my husband and my daughter would say, no. So you really want to get clear on what the drive is, what the why. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of work of like Les Brown's, like, know your why. Tony Robbins is the same. Know your why. Your why will carry you through. I always look up there because my husband has quotes up there that he has of Eric Thomas and Les Brown. Your why doesn't always have to be like, oh, I work with this person. that's like the right side of the brain saying like, well, I have to do it this way. Here's a perfect Excel spreadsheet. The left brain goes, screw it. Like, I am so upset, or I'm so sad, or I'm so this. This is why I'm doing it. And I will tell you, my why continues. I had an amazing man. His name was his name is Francois, who used to. I was so fortunate to work with him, and he did a lot of design on my team. And he was just he is an amazing man. He had to leave because his daughter got leukemia, and she died in February. And so I think for 2 months I cried every day, and I was just checking Instagram and calling him. And his wife is a health coach, and I knew her from my end. And that's why I continue. It's not just my family. It's what I refuse to deem as acceptable. So if you can't find your why within, open up your eyes. Just look around. Ways to where to share your message. Social media, Facebook, Instagram. I always say don't master all of them and feel like overwhelmed, but I learned how to share in 15 minutes. I would do one post, share on Pinterest, share on Google+, share on LinkedIn, share on Facebook, and Instagram wasn't around at that time, and I'd be done. You know, babies were like drinking babas on that couch. Don't get overwhelmed by it. It will suck you down, and then you won't spend time talking and sharing your story. Share your story. Remember that slide. Tell your story. Newsletter, sending it out. You know, share, talk about it. Don't just be like, food of the month. That is so BS, food of the month. Who really cares about the food of the month? They want to hear, you know, this is what happened. This is how I helped myself. I remember sending out an newsletter that said I lost 4 pounds. And clearly I'm not like I don't have, but it was just, I could feel this excess weight. My probiotics stopped working. And I didn't take a page out of my own book, which I always teach, rotate your probiotics, and it stopped working. So just funkhead started to, that email, I landed 5 clients and 4 do-it-yourselfers. Do the math. You can send out 1 a month, but like plan them. Think about the strategy. And that's the thing. When you're an entrepreneur, you're not just like, oh, you know, I'm going on a vacation and then I can't be in my business. Like, you're like, no, Friday, I'm having a plan so I can chill on the weekend. And in the beginning years, you may have to do what I did, but I had massive goals. I wanted to, I also had to support my family, but I worked at gyms. I wanted to get seen and known locally. I wanted to have one-on-one clients, and I wanted sustainability. So depending where your financial goals are, that may not be where mine were, but I also was supporting an entire family. But you want to do that on Friday and set yourself up, but you also want to do it like 3 months, 6 months at a glance. At least if you are launching an online or offline program, or launching your business for January, February, you want to start planning now. And you want to start setting the stage and this one and like kind of dripping it out. Webinars are great, free opt-ins, I mean, all that kind of great stuff. So when I want you to think about tomorrow, I want you always to say, people don't buy programs, they buy you. An opt-in freebie doesn't just sell itself. Even if it's on a Facebook post, the social media post, that's why copywriters charge $150 to $250 for a Facebook social media post. It's the post. I mean, of course, the Facebook design of the image is important, but it's the post that pulls you in. So remember, when you're doing your homework tonight, or maybe you're behind on your homework, you're catching up, which is fine. This is not a race. This is for you to actually nail down the things you need to nail down to get to the next place for you and for the person who's suffering that needs you. Watch the replay. do the homework. I would also do the timeline because it just helps to get your mind going, and write down what were the pain and what were the issues, and think about your core values. So let me just stop sharing. I always say go rogue, because you don't have to be like anyone else. And I don't want you to be like anyone else. You don't even want to be like anyone else. So, okay. Well, I'm going to go to the Q&A first, and then I'm going to backtrack. Oh my goodness. We're already at an hour. Can you believe that? I know. Trust me, Mimi. Okay. Why is that? Let me just see if I can get that again. Okay. All right, let me just go. Okay, so somebody is saying, do I start the childhood issue even though that's not the autoimmune part? A juvenile arthritis? That's an autoimmune. So yeah, my thing I would 100% be like, hey, you know, when I was a kid, these are the issues that were showing up for me. And these were the warning signs. I think a big thing when I say connect the dots is think about the warning signs. When you have a story that is physical in nature, but even emotional, what were the warning signs? When you think about all these, you know, kids who are so distraught and shooting up schools, what were the warning signs? We always say that, oh, they didn't see the warning signs. Well, let's lay them out. I would definitely talk about, you know, autoimmune part, pneumonia, didn't get asthma. Asthma is, per the work of Huda Clark, it's the Ascaris parasite in the lungs, and pneumonia is, you know, strep, really strep on a rampage, which my son had. And so I would, you, just like I mentioned earlier, I would talk about that, and you can kind of say, you know, these were the things that happened and nobody was connecting the dots, and this is why you have to work with me. I help people to connect the dots. Somebody else is saying, what if I have a lot of health issues, binge eating, sex drive, sleep deprivation, low energy, depression, that toxic relationship? I would even say, you know what? I'm like so many women who stress eat, feel overwhelmed, emotionally eat, and we're looking to fill a void. I was in a bad toxic relationship. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was, you know, binge eating. I had low energy. I had I help women to not live this madness. So you're not even going in. See how different that is from like, well, I help women between the ages of and I help them too. I give people that template because it's just a template to start with when we need that. But let's just say conversion and sales happen when we just speak. How many free workshops did you have between the ones you charged for? You know what? I would actually, there wasn't a method to the system. If I decided to give extra value, such as handouts, which our workshops often come with, a series of handouts at yourhealthcoachbiz.com, or if I was doing a workshop combined with like a little mini jumpstart, you know, I would charge. I know everyone charges differently. Price is very relative for people. Some people have a standard like, well, I do workshops at, you know, 97 or 57 or 50 or 35. I would always decide, one, how long was I doing this? Was it a free one? If I was ending with leading them to a program or leading them somewhere, I often didn't charge because that was a lead magnet. If I was not charging, I was like, hey, we're doing a cooking class and you get a program, that was just $97. So because I was infusing already that price. So again, that's more strategy and really planning out your business instead of, and we can talk about that more in detail this week about like really masterminding kind of that funnel. But I would think about that kind of like, what is the balance? I hope that answered it. really passionate about working with my community, but I still want to do this business. I've not been able to feed Lebanon and African American communities. A major need for education, prevention, working with low income. I have a passion to do this because it's part of my story. How can I find balance to still make a living? You know, I think it can be really difficult when we live in areas where we feel like they're low income. I see somebody else on this call that I've spoken to them about that. One is that you can reach out to your community and churches, local community leaders, and actually say, you know, I want to put on this workshop for 150. Would we be able to like put that money together, and I will provide the following services? Or if you did group programs, is there a certain price where people can meet that price? Also, you know, sometimes it is really imperative to start speaking out even on Facebook and saying, you know, I'm putting together like a nonprofit, or I'm putting together a fundraiser for people in my community who are really struggling. That's where I do always say, sometimes it's worth building an online part so you can find people not in your community, find entrepreneurs who are women, or women of your color, as we talked about last night, who are more prone to heart disease, more prone to diabetes, because as we spoke, different cultures are more prone to different things, and start to have then a fund where you can decide, just like I was able to decide, like, you know, to be able to coach certain people for free or at a very discounted rate. Depending also where you live, sometimes that you can also work under doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, where they can run that through insurance. And so there are different ways to do that. So I would definitely suggest, Candace, if you can reach out to us in the forum, that would be amazing, because that's a great question. If I don't know how to answer it, I will find somebody. Okay, I'm going to answer one more question, and we're going to do two more questions, and I'm going to do hot seats. Julie, you're the last. Okay, I was already stressed. I was stressed in a management job, but had implant rupture 2 years after silicone. Symptoms presented like, and I was so sick, had the gut issues. I would say, and this is what I always say to people, health issues come from a myriad of issues. If you know that it's one specific thing, find out and get the clear documentation from that. Because I think so often we can say, oh, like for example, like, oh, the EMF waves, and somebody will think we're insane. Get the clear documentation from that. Be like, this is what happened. I couldn't believe that. There are many people that have, you know, gotten their breast implants out and have found they, like, within days felt better. There are many people that take, you know, that had issues far before that. So I think that to just set a really clear, like, this is what happened. This is when things got really, really bad for me. And this is what I want to teach women to prevent. I know that in the different forums for breast implant recovery, they can get a little tricky, just like any forums for heavy metals and autism and spectrum related. They can get touchy and emotional because they're very emotional topics for everyone. But I would suggest reaching out also to either the person who helped take them out, or maybe the healers or the doctors that you saw after that helped you to recover, or some wellness centers on education, because that's what we talk a lot about, JV and referral. This is when I think that it's really important with your story and with your message to be then telling your story and reaching out to different places that would allow you to speak or want to work with you in collaboration because they believe in what you're talking about. So I hope that helped. And I really encourage anybody who feels like they're struggling in their story to come in and share their story, because we will 100% be right under to help you. If your story seems to be more emotional, would mindset be needed? I think it's probably my niche. Just feel like I'm starting to understand myself. I think I'm still, I think I'm still weight loss. I'm just missing something. So this is the biggest thing that I want to say about all niche. If you think about it, they all overlap. If there's gut issues, there's hormone issues for a lot of people. If there's gut issues, there may be weight issues. If there's anxiety, there's most often like weight issues, whether it's stress eating or if there's like type A personalities, there's usually control issues, and those can manifest in different ways. When I talk about the story, that's why feelings are feelings. Many of you didn't experience the same story that you heard last night, but you felt her and you identified with her because you felt her, either because you were a mom or you just felt bad as a woman or bad as a human, or you just felt the pain of not being educated. So I think when you're thinking about your story, I want you to actually, instead of sitting and saying, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to just talk about mindset, I want you to think about, it's not just mindset or weight loss. It's actually the both. It's like, I remember when I used to stress eat, I thought that I had to be perfect. Whatever your story is, whether it was, I was looking at magazines, or I just felt in my family like I needed to be that way, or even I put those constraints on myself. This is what happened to me. This is what I carried through my life. And because of that, I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel like I was a great mom then, or a great wife, or a great friend. I felt insignificant, yet nobody viewed me that way, but I did. And when I started to unravel these pieces of the perfection that is put on us by the world, I started to see myself in a different way. I stopped stress eating. I started to own my voice. I started to feel that I was significant, and this is why I can help you. That's mindset. That's weight. That's empowerment. That's family. I mean, it's so many messages, right? So when you're doing this, don't just think single focused. That's why I keep saying the niche is important, but I want you to really think about your story. Okay, Amanda, do you mind if I promote you to a panelist, just talk so we can do a hot seat? You're going to. Let's see. Hi, Amanda. Can I hear you? Turn your volume up. I'm like, I'll put my ear. Put on mute. No, you're not muted. You're unmuted. You want to do this? How about this? You'll figure it out for tomorrow. And we'll do it for tomorrow. Yes? Okay, so tomorrow, because I wrote you down. Okay, but if not, don't worry. If not, I'll do this in the Facebook group, okay? No problem. It's okay. Hold on. Okay, Yvette, we're going to just... Hi, Yvette. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I saw your video today, so I was like, and I watched. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna end up talking. And I love what you said, because I do think so many people think does my childhood need to be like a part of the story at all? I think it needs to be a huge part of the story. And the only reason why is, think about the difference. And I want you to actually break it down between like you saying, well, I have MS, and your typical thing that you usually say to, when I was a little girl, this is what happened.
So, when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house in front of the TV, not because I wanted to be there watching TV, but because I had juvenile arthritis and I couldn't walk. And the people who are around my age will remember they had these bottles of this stuff. It was called Heat, and it had the little brush attached to the top. And my grandmother would rub this stuff on me, and it's kind of like Icy Hot or Bengay or whatever now. But when you're 6 or 7 years old and you are having to be rubbed down because you can't walk and because everything is swollen and because there's this pain, it just makes it challenging. And I think that that's where a lot of the issues started for me. I didn't feel deprived or anything because I didn't realize what all I was missing out on. I didn't find that out until later. And, when I got older and I started getting active and then I saw the things that I could do and the things that I couldn't do, it led to sort of a frustration that I knew I needed to do something different, but I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how. And life happens, life happens. I had kids and became a single mom when my children were very young. And so I was working in this job that I did not enjoy. I was very stressed out all of the time. And then all of a sudden I went from this person who had been 135 pounds forever to a 230-pound woman who's having asthma attacks, 2 times a week, migraines 2 or 3 times a week, just, fatigue and not being able to be a real part of my kids' lives. I mean, when you're 230 pounds and I'm short, I'm 5'4.5". Yeah, it's so when you weigh that much and you're that short and your kids want to run, you can't run with them. You can't do the active things that your kids want to do. And so I felt like I was missing out on their childhood and I was missing out on being a good mom. I provided for them what I needed to provide for them, everything except for me, the part of me that they should have had. And so I left this job and I decided I was going to get healthy. I started eating better. I started losing the weight. And then I'm sitting in a classroom because at that point I was a substitute teacher. And all of a sudden, this fatigue is hitting me and I don't understand it because I'd gone to bed early the night before. And then, the room is kind of spinning and I'm like, gosh, apparently I didn't get enough sleep. I need to go and get some more. And then all of a sudden the students are working and I'm looking at my computer screen and I see double. And I'm like, okay, there's a problem. And so, I go to the urgent care. They didn't have any answers. They sent me to the emergency room. And 24 hours later, we were still trying to figure it out. And we're doing tests and all of that stuff. And I'm lying in the bed and the doctor walks in and he says, it looks like you've got MS. We're going to have to do some more tests to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. And, I felt like I was in a fog or like I had been dipped in water and my head hadn't been pulled out yet, because it was like, what do you mean? I can't have MS because, I still have my daughter at home and I have things that I want to do with my life. And, I've just lost the majority of the weight that I was trying to lose and I'm getting healthy. What do you mean? And then he said to me, that, I'm sure you're going to go online and do some research and figure everything out, but this is a degenerative disease, and so you will progressively get worse, and that's just the path that the disease takes. And so he didn't say, you're going to get bad until you die or anything like that, but that's how I felt after he said those words. And then when he left, and I was lying in that hospital bed alone, and the tears started coursing down my face. And there were other people there. There were other people in other rooms, and I didn't want to disturb them with sobs. So I cried quietly, thinking about how my life was going to be different and what was I going to do. And then over the next probably year, it was about learning what the disease is, trying to figure out how to survive the bone crushing fatigue that I was experiencing, the pain that I was experiencing when my arm would lift up by itself and I'd have to use the other hand to pull it back down. And the headaches, the migraines that went from 1 day to 3 days or 4 days at a time. And I just felt like my quality of life had gone so far down. And, here's my daughter. She's a junior in high school. She had just gotten her driver's license, and now she's got to drive me to work in the mornings before she goes to color guard practice, because I still have double vision, 6-8 weeks later. And all of a sudden she's got to be an adult too. And so I decided that I wasn't going to live that way anymore. I decided that I was going to do whatever it took to get better. I was going to do whatever it took to get my life back. Because one of the things that has always been a part of me is about, we feel privileged when we do certain things, but health shouldn't be one of them. Health is not something that you get to have maybe if you're one of the rich, or if you're one of the celebrities, or if you're one of the ones that has a big Facebook following. Health is not a privilege, it's a right. And I felt like I wanted to take that right and I wanted to share that right with other people. My tagline for years has been empowering women everywhere. And that's what I do. I give people the power back over their health so that they can reduce or eliminate their symptoms and start living again. I get to go and hang out with my daughter. I get to work out with her. I can chase her if I want to. She's 21 now, but I can still do it because I got that part back, because I took the time to figure things out and to learn what works when you have an autoimmune condition, when you don't have to sacrifice living because this disease takes over, whatever your condition is. If it's MS like mine, if it's rheumatoid arthritis, if it's lupus, whatever it is, you can live better, and I can help you with that.
See that? I was going to say, and even when you were talking about the hospital, like I could feel you, and that is why I always say, if you're not talking somewhere, you're not going to get hired. So when people would say to me, like my husband used to joke and say, "Oh, you're going to Whole Foods today? Great, everything will be paid for." Because I am a chatty Cathy. When you get me, I walk out of somewhere, I'm like, "Hey, oh my God, I love your bag," or, "Oh, you look confused. Can I help you with that?" And we have to feel comfortable talking about, what happened. And I think the part that I was talking about with your childhood is that there were things that happened. And there were things that were probably signs. There were probably things that also from your mom and your dad that you could probably put together and even have that on a whole talk in a series. Helping women, not just where they are now, but really saying, look, these are some of the things you want to look out for. Because we're in a world where I feel like almost everyone is diagnosed on a day-to-day basis. Well, one of the best friends that I grew up with in Philly called me a few years ago. You know what? I have rheumatoid arthritis. I can't even pick up my 2 children anymore. It's that bad, and I just think in a world where we are, and knowing with all the spraying and the EMF waves and the pollution and the herbicides and the pesticide and the everything, that's when I always say, when does the trash can spill over? Right. So you're already super clear with conviction on who you help and why, but then take it to this other place even, and that could even be another bucket.
I did actually ignore my symptoms for a long time. We know that I had it for several years before I was actually diagnosed because I was not paying attention. And part of it was, like the fatigue, I just thought, oh, I'm always burning the candle at both ends, but I must have lit it in the middle this time. Or, when my arm was lifting.
But think about, so when I talk about like blogs and social media and newsletters, I mean, or even a live on Facebook or even a talk, I didn't know I was ignoring my symptoms. Who would have thought that fatigue or a headache or, aches or all that, that's just normal because I was a single mom. I was this. I mean, that's just life.
Right. Okay.
So, but what you're saying is I had arthritis at such a young age that my grandma was putting Bengay-ish, hot rub, hot scrub, all that on me because I couldn't walk. At that time in the world, nobody talked about, autoimmune.
Right.
We didn't connect the dots. This wasn't here. And so fast forward to me at this age, I'm, a single mom, I'm a teacher, and all of a sudden I'm at my computer. A few years before that, I was feeling tired. I was stressed, but I was a single mom. And I just thought, here are these things. But if I would have sat there with somebody like myself now, somebody would have said, like, when people hired me, I was like, I am becoming a health coach so no one else suffers like this. Because when I sat with clients, the first thing I had them do is I would say, let's do your family tree. And I would have them map out every disease. And I would say, tell me the health of your mom. And they, oh, it's great. No, like really, like, was she taking Tums? Was she taking, antacids? Did she? Oh, she always did take those. She always said her stomach hurt. She always said she couldn't eat. And I'm like, and oh yeah, my dad, I mean, he had gallstones. I mean, that's not a big deal. I'm like, all right. And I'd be just, taking a little note. And it wasn't to turn to my client or anybody and say, well, it was to turn and say, okay, so I want to educate you per the work, whoever it was, Chris Kressler, Donna Gates, and be like, or Anne Louise Gittleman, when there's gallbladder issues, this can stem from pathogens, bacteria, poor bile flow, which is from congested liver, which also then affects this. And he was like, and then client will just say, oh, that's interesting because my dad was always really red on the face. Well, and so all of a sudden you're connecting the dots. So when you start talking about like, these are the symptoms that I felt. And if you had an autoimmune or if this stuff, I never even say conditions. I feel like it makes a claim. I say, if you had this stuff from birth, or what they claim as an autoimmune from birth, or problems from birth, because a child doesn't have arthritis at 6. Are genetic mutations probably an issue? I mean, I'm sure methylation, detoxification, gut, but you don't have arthritis to the point that you can't walk unless there are some other really existing cofactors there. Just like my uncle who was born with seizures. There's also underlying EBV. But nobody knew that back then because nobody tested for that. So I always say, don't make claims, educate. You're connecting the dots for women like myself, like you, if you're saying for women like myself who are either thinking about birthing, conceiving, or have children, this is what is suggested per the work of the people who taught me, or the path that I walked. This is what I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And so
that wasn't too much. Because I like how do you know when it's enough and when it's too much? I feel like it's the line there.
It's a fine line. My philosophy, and I know many of the people, like all of us, we have things that we would never say, especially if we have children. There are things that I would love to write a book on. I would love to say, and not for shock factor, for for changing somebody else's life, they're not needed. It's not needed to say, I have children. And maybe if this was only me, that's one thing. But I feel like a lot of us confuse authenticity with vomit. So we'll be like, oh, I'm sharing everything. It's like, no, you just vomited on either a person in a workshop or on Facebook. And I went through that time where I was like, blah, but I always try to say, this is what I'm going through. And like, I'm still struggling, or this is what I'm going through and here's the solution. I feel like it's not too much when you're saying to somebody, now this is what happened and this is what I did.
Okay.
I think the vomit and the too much feels too much. And we have a tendency as people in this field, because, and I was talking about this the other day, we just want people to be better. We're like, even my mom has been like, you're so, and my Aunt Patty is like this, who has run a developmental delay organization for 30 plus years. Nobody talked about that 30 years ago. She works with Klinghardt. I mean, she's unbelievable. And she's like, you have to do this. You've got to check your teeth. You've got to do this. And everyone's always like, Cousin Patty. And I'm like, because she wants everyone to be well. Like, she's sick of kids with dyslexia and all these issues that can be resolved with a few different practical techniques, not even like anything crazy. So I have found that I will be like, you just have to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of realizing that my path, and that's why I always say, go into the story and realize, what can people really absorb? Even if somebody's sick, disease state's a little different. I mean, I do feel, but still, fear is fear. Sometimes we even know that something's going on. We're like, oh, well, I don't know, because it's scary. So I do think it's not even in how much you say. It's, I had to do all of this. But when you work with me, I always say, I don't know if it's I come from commercial real estate, but I always say, we're going to compartmentalize these phases.
Okay.
Because if we do it all, you're going to feel overwhelmed and you're going to binge eat, no matter whether you're a man or a woman or an alien or a dog. Like, it's just scary. But you also have to talk to me and communicate with me on where you're at. I usually have found, just like with any webinar, so whether you're working offline or online, it's like, saying 3 things like, my name is, Yvette. It's interesting. I really had a long road. Pause. I was one of those kids, maybe not like you, or maybe like you, but this passed started for me very early. I had arthritis to the point that I couldn't walk at 6. Thank God for my grandma, because she blessed me with not feeling like I wouldn't be alone as a kid. So I didn't really know what I was losing out on because I had her. Pause.
Okay.
I realized that, years later when I got better, and I did get better, I got divorced and because something did happen, stress, something happened that upregulated whatever came back. Because we don't just go, oh, I got MS or I got lupus. It's usually like, I didn't just get ulcerative colitis. We moved from Philadelphia. We lost everything except the money for our house, which we had to sell and we were living on. And I didn't just get ulcerative colitis. I was stressed. Everything went literally to shit. And I was pouring blood into the toilet. So I didn't just get it. It got triggered with an already weakened digestive system that was already there, and intestinal dysbiosis. So it's like, you can say, stress came. It was, I didn't anticipate how hard it would be to be a single mom and to raise, a child and to support her. And I started seeing these symptoms coming. I felt fatigue. My vision started getting off. And there was this one day I was sitting there 130 pounds heavier. Can you believe it? and my eyesight went, and all of a sudden I couldn't get up, and I ended up in the quick med, and the doctor turned to me and said, "You have MS." That's even your introduction. Like when I go and talk, and even if it's a 2-hour talk, I'm like, I'm gonna break it down for you in 5 minutes, my whole life. That's really it. Like if people want to read between the lines and come up to you after, that's where it's not vomiting. I can tell you every different thing in between and all the different loss and the pain and the things that maybe got me to these different places. But that's why I always say when you're doing your story and the homework even tonight, it's like pick out these 10 things. It's like, because there were probably these 10 things that you dropped to your knees.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Wow. Good stuff. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Like I said, the more that we practice this, because this is the nuts and bolts. You can have a great opt-in freebie. You can have a great workshop. You can spend all the time doing it. But if you're like this, standing up there, like, today we're going to talk about, and I looked that way the first, but then I learned my second workshop to say, I'm really nervous, guys. I am not a great public speaker, but I have a really important message. Then I could breathe. I still was like this, and I was like, "You're great. You don't look." I was like, my cheek is shaking. They're like, "No, it's not. We can't even see." And I was like, "Okay, I can't even see." Note to self, they can't even see, because it was like this on my eye. The more that we just practice, and also to realize that each person needs a different message. Like somebody who's a mom is going to need to hear what you said. It was really hard not to play with my child. It was really hard. Somebody who's not a mom, but maybe is past that time, needs to hear more about maybe the warning signs and how you felt. And like, so everyone, that's why it's not just a niche. It's creating these multiple messages, and also learning how they just come from place where it's a conversation. It's just a conversation. It's like, I don't even know you. And I'm like, hey, so, how is your daughter? Is she happy now?
Right. Okay.
So
it's the connection, the individual connection, even if it's a group.
Even if you're talking like this, like people are always like, how do I get over the fear of lives? I'm like, I'm like, take a picture of somebody, of your family, of whoever it is, put them right there, and just be like, or pretend you're speaking, to your daughter, and be like, okay, guys, this is what we have to talk about. This is why it's so important today. I wish I would have known this. Let me take you back this kind of time, because let me take you back to the day that I got diagnosed. That's actually the headline. Let me take you back to the day. That's the headline of Alive. That is a social media. That's actually a week or a month of you telling the whole story, leading them to a masterclass, leading them to work with you, leading them to an offline group. I mean, once you have your story, people are like, I don't know what to write. I'm like, then you're not in your life.
What's funny is that, like, I have a program called Fight for a Cure for MS, and I work with MMA promotions, because I'm an MMA official for amateur sports.
Oh, hello. Of course you are.
And so at some I do what I do. But so when we do an event as a Fight for a Cure, right before we do either the raffle or the auction where we auction off autographed stuff, I get inside the cage and I talk about having MS, and I thank everybody for coming out and supporting such a good cause and all of that. And it's very easy for me, but it's not my business. That's a charity thing. Right. And so I'm trying to like marry the
great speaker. I mean, I have this feeling, my gut feeling is that you're a great communicator. You're very well-spoken. You're very clear, but there's something that probably comes to your one-on-one business where you're like,
yeah.
I could put you in front of 1,000 people like, thank you for coming to the charity for the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, your work is to actually step in, because what I did miss there until you talked about your daughter, I did not feel you.
Okay.
And really often, which is what I said last night, and guys, I'm sorry that this is so late and you guys have all been on this, is that what I feel often when people have, they're like, I don't want to think about the cancer anymore. I don't want to think about this. You don't have to go back there, but you have to be able to identify. Like, I remember I used to compulsively clean every time I would get diagnosed and come home. I would go into the shower, psycho, with some crazy little hydrogen peroxide and a toothbrush, and be in there for 2.5 hours. Because I didn't know how to process. It was like I just had to clean compulsively. Someone was like, do you have OCD? I'm like, no, I couldn't even express how I didn't know the word. Now I felt so alone, disempowered. I didn't know what to do. You're not going back to your autoimmune. You're giving that a voice to those who don't know how to have a voice.
Okay. Okay. I'll have to work on that because,
we all do. That's a practice. That's like learning how to be a mom. You can read it in a book.
Yeah.
But that baby comes and you're like, that wasn't in a book. And you just learn how, and then another child maybe comes, and like my kids are complete opposite. I'm like, they didn't tell me this is going to happen. So.
Like that for me too. My son was one way and my daughter was completely different. Yeah.
So I would say, guys, and I'm sorry this was longer than anticipated.
Sorry.
It's not even, I talked over. I talked longer. But I want you guys to, when you go and you watch these replays, chop it and stop at one place. And take in, I always say, like 15 minutes at a time. Take in, walk away. Take in, again, this isn't like a race to the finish. You have these replays forever. This work is really daily work. And as you see, even from those people who have done hot seats, like, this is daily work. This is ongoing work. And there's always another layer. The more you get comfortable with peeling back these layers, you will be like, oh my God, I have so many clients, I need to have a membership. Or I have so many clients, like, I need to have groups. That's like the healthy problem you want to have. And that comes because you're so clear from your heart. And you have given yourself the permission to have a voice. That's where it most of all needs to start. So I am going to upload this. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you so much for offering yourself. And, such a beautiful testimony, seriously. Because I've seen many who have not made it and many who have. So
I think you're amazing. I really enjoy what you're doing. Just like how personable you are and how authentic you are as you talk to us and help us through this. And I really like the gift that you have where you can identify what we need, right? So, we're on these calls for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, but you really pick out the things that we are lacking that are going to give us exactly what we need in our little blueprint to success. And so I think it's great that you are offering so much of yourself and giving us an opportunity to find our true success and to find our true core calling. Thank you.
So I'm going to flip the script on you, as I always say. You're going to listen to this last part and you're going to hear, because those are actually your words to yourself too. This is when you're supposed to go, all right. That means that you guys, when you look in the mirror tonight, you say things like, I know I went through whatever the story was. It's just from listening to even the few people that we had, and tomorrow we're going to have way more hot seats. It's the feelings we identify with. That's the connection. If you want to be in any business, even in architecture, lawyer, like, you hire one lawyer of another because you trust them. You trust that they're going to defend you. You trust that they're going to write they're going to have your back. It's the same thing in this business, but when they're hiring you, they're hiring your daily habits. They're hiring the process you went through. So if you don't know how to explain that or to show up there, to take a chance, because you may fall, but guess what? You may not fall. So I will see you guys in the forum. I'm going to upload this, send your homework. It's on the replay. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful, beautiful night. I'll see you guys there. Thank you, Yvette. Do your work. Everyone. All right, guys. Have a beautiful night. Bye, guys.